Welcome back. I hope you are all doing well. In this episode, I am going to talk about the three mirrors of relationships. And this is going to be based off of Gregg Braden's book, The Divine Matrix. I read or listened to, I really love Audible, Gregg Braden's book, The Divine Matrix, about 3 or 4 years ago. And recently I was guided to go back and listen to a couple of different chapters. And oftentimes when this happens, I understand that there's a deeper meaning for me. There's something that I need to pull out of that from a deeper consciousness state. And I do highly recommend that if you have read something in the past and you are being guided to go back to it again, there's a reason for that. You're at a different consciousness state and you will be seeing things from a whole new perspective. And that's exactly what has happened to me when I went back to review this information. And, I've talked about in previous podcasts what I call our spiritual amnesia. It's like we learn things and then we move on and then we forget about them and then we're circled back to them because life is completely a spiral, right? We see things from deeper and deeper perspectives every time that we look at them. So there was a reason I was guided back to Gregg's book, and I thought that I would share the three mirrors of relationships because I know in my personal life, these mirrors have been very blatant. And when I listened to his book several years ago, I was actually in a relationship and I was really struggling in it. And I remember this information was very potent for me at the time. And now, circling back several years later, I am applying this to different relationships in my life, not necessarily intimate relationships, but working relationships. And not only do these apply to people, they can also apply to our pets as well. And I will speak a little bit on that in this episode. But so, The Divine Matrix by Gregg Braden, it's Greggg. If you've never heard of him before, he's fantastic. He has a lot of great quality content out there. I suggest that you check him out if you've never heard of him before. But he talks about the divine matrix being the container for all things, a bridge between the world within us and the world beyond us. It is a mirror for the outer world for which we create, both consciously and subconsciously, in our inner world. So, just that in itself, it's that matrix that we create. And I know we get caught up on that word matrix. We're all living in a matrix, but we're all creating our own matrix based off of our own thoughts and emotions, our beliefs. And so everybody's matrix looks differently. And yes, it is as above, so below, as within, so without. We are in smaller fractaled matrices within our own lives. However, we are all functioning within one large universal matrix as well. So when we can shift our own personal matrix, it will allow for our external matrix to shift as well because they are all connected on a much deeper level. So, when we live in a reflective universe, basically the way that I perceive it is everything that is going on with me internally is being created from an external standpoint. So the relationships, the experiences, the situations, the people that I come in contact with, my life experiences are all a direct result of the cause of what's going on with me internally. And this has been very eye-opening experience for me because there was a time when I was always blaming things externally. And when that happens, it's basically just our ego. You see, our relationships are like mirrors and they simply reflect what's already within inside of us. But our ego never wants to see what's within us. It's more interested in the you versus me, the blame game, the shame game. And whenever we villainize the other person, that we are actually missing the core lesson of what we are supposed to be facing in our lives. And unless it's something absolutely toxic and abusive, pointing fingers is never a good idea for a healthy relationship. We always, find that it's important for us to take that finger and turn it back on ourselves and ask ourselves, what is it that, that we might need to heal internally that could be reflecting something out into our external reality? And when we accept that our relationships are like a mirror to each other's wounds, we're reflecting those wounds back and forth to one another, we can stop running away from our problems and actually, face them head on and have a deeper, more conscious understanding of why we are having these particular situations continue to uh, appear in our lives. And when people see relationships as a means to accept and heal our wounds instead of escaping ourselves, we can stop playing the you versus me game, and our relationships will be much more honest and genuine and authentic, and they'll be much deeper. You see, our ego wants to keep us in a loop. And if we stay in that loop and we keep repeating the same cycle and the same patterns over and over again, this is what feels comfortable and safe to the egoic mind. And this is all that it knows. So when we start to shift those programs or shift those patterns, it starts to get really rattled. And that's when it can really appear in our closest relationships, because the ego is trying to fight it. I don't know if you've ever been through a situation where you've either started to change or someone has started to change, and everyone around them starts to buck the system a little bit. They start to buck it. They're like, oh no, you can't do that, or you can't change. What's going on? And what it's really doing is it's reflecting back to them. If you're changing, then where do I need to change? And that can be really difficult because not everyone is ready for that transition or that change. So that's why it's so important that you just continue to focus on yourself and your own growth, your own expansion, and not worry about what others are doing. All they are doing in this holographic or reflective universe is mirroring back to you what areas that you need to heal in your life. So it's like a spiral, right? Our intuition calls us to make gradual changes in our lives that leads towards our ongoing evolution, our development, our expansion. And when we tap into that pure consciousness, we can see past those repeated cycles of the mind, which can urge us to move beyond what we think and what we know. So it's really just dropping into that heart space, getting out of that mind and connecting the brain and the heart into a coherence. And Gregg talks a lot about that, the mind heart coherence. And he's got some excellent information out there about that as well. So when we finally learn to dive deeper into uh, those programs that we are consciously recognizing or unconsciously recognizing. I know for me, for many, many years, I was unconsciously recognizing that these were my loops. I was in a loop. I was in a loop of dating the same type of partners. I was in a loop of the same types of career choices. I was in a loop of the same types of interactions with my family. And when we recognize that we're in a loop, it allows us to take a step back and really evaluate and analyze, why is it that we're doing that? And these are our subconscious programs. Our subconscious mind is working 90% of the time in the background. And until we recognize it and pull it out, it's almost like a library. When you go to the library and you're looking for a book, you have all these books to choose from. And the library is your subconscious mind, and you're going in there to pick out a book. And so you start looking it up and figuring out, okay, where's it located? And then you hone in and you focus on it and you find that book and you pull it out. That's when you're pulling it out from the subconscious mind to the conscious mind. So just recognizing it and being more alert and more aware as to what that program is or that loop is will help you so tremendously in the long run. So what are these three mirrors of relationships? So Gregg goes into detail about the three mirrors, and he gives um, his own personal experiences with these mirrors. And so the first mirror is called What I Am. And this is the mirror of the moment. Our relationships and our pets are showing us who we are in the moment. So, for example, if you're noticing common themes amongst the people in your life, it could be, gosh, so and so is so angry all the time, or everyone around me is so angry and so negative, or everyone seems to be so sad and depressed all the time. What this mirror depicts is that instead of focusing outward at why everyone else is angry, negative, and depressed, we turn it around and ask ourselves, why am I angry? Why am I negative? Why am I depressed? And going deeper within and asking ourselves those hard questions and reflecting that back to us to dive a little bit deeper into why we are experiencing that in our external world. So, going within, figuring out, why am I feeling these feelings and why is it reflecting out into my external world? So oftentimes we can definitely see this with our pets. And I notice this with a lot of clients that they will reach out to me because they're having an issue with their pet. And I can definitely see where it's reflecting back into their life. So Greg shares a neat story about his mom and how he called his mom and asked her how she was doing. And she said she was doing fine. However, the dog was having some problems breathing, some problems with his lungs. And so Greg took a step back and asked his mom, you were going to schedule an x-ray or an MRI to have your lungs checked. Have you done that yet? And she said, no, I'm not really ready for that. I need to get a few things done first, but I will definitely schedule it soon. Well, he, kind of encouraged her to get it done. And after she went and got her scans done, they recognized that there were some nodules or some lumps on her lungs, and she needed to go in and have surgery on them. So she scheduled the surgery, went in and had the nodules or the lumps removed. And within a couple of weeks, she noticed that her dog was no longer showing any signs or symptoms of problems breathing or problems with the lungs. So this is a very specific example of how our pets or the people closest to us, our children, will reflect back to us things that we need to heal in our lives. And I'll see this specifically with people who have lost a pet. Oftentimes they will go out and try to fill that hole or that wound with another animal. And, maybe their first pet passed away from lung cancer or something along those lines. And then they go and get another pet without processing their own grief. And in previous podcasts, I've talked about how grief will sit in the heart and the lungs. And then they will notice within a few months or a year or so that their new pet will start to show symptoms of the lung cancer or the lung problems or the lung issues. And what it's doing is that new pet is very highly empathic. Pets are super, super empaths. And what that pet is doing is it's transmuting that energy or that emotion that the person has not processed. So, that's why I usually encourage people that if they've lost an animal to really process that grief, because if you don't, it's just going to be like you're in a race and you're handing that baton to the next animal. And that poor little animal is going to be there trying to soak up all of that energy that you are not processing more deeply. So, any issues that your pets may have, maybe your pet has a cough, ask yourself, where am I not speaking up? Where am I not sharing my voice in the world? Potentially your pet could have a kidney or a urinary issue. Where am I struggling with fear and anxiety? And maybe your pet is struggling with diabetes. Diabetes often presents itself as, I don't feel that there's joy in my life. I don't see that there's a sweetness in the world. Where are you not fulfilling your joy? Maybe you're stuck in a routine and you're not um, taking care of your needs to fill yourself with happiness and doing the things that bring you passion and joy. And, even fleas for that matter. Ask yourself, what is pestering me? What is pestering me? And you'll begin to notice once you fix that issue within yourself. Now, if you're living in a household with other people, this could be a reflection of others as well. So it's really, a big, huge mirror. It's like you're living in a house of mirrors and everything is being reflected back to you based off of the interactions that you're having, the people you're coming in contact with, and the pets that you're coming in contact with. So you can apply this to your relationships, to your animals, to your children, everything. So this is the very first mirror, what I am. Okay, so the second mirror is what I judge. And this one, I think for me, is probably one of the most difficult ones because this is where we are definitely looking outside of ourselves and pointing fingers at others. And if you seem to be a very judgmental person, or you find that there are people around you who are significantly judgmental, we can take this back to our own internal selves and ask ourselves, what are we judging? Maybe you judge people because of their weight, or the way that they look, or their financial status, or the way that they respond or act, whatever it may be. Ask yourself, in the moment when you catch yourself judging someone or something, reflect it back to yourself and say, where did I first feel this judgment upon myself? All right. So if you're judging someone for their weight, take it back to yourself and ask yourself, when was I first judged about my weight? When did this happen to me the very first time? Because this is a subconscious program. This is a reflection. This is a lesson that needs to be learned. And there's a reason why it's being reflected back to you. And so when we are judging outside of ourselves, we are judging within ourselves. And the moment you start to heal that judgment within yourself, shifting that self talk really is what it comes down to. Maybe you beat yourself up about your weight. And I'm just using this as an example. There's so many examples. But maybe you do beat yourself up about your weight. And oftentimes you're finding yourself projecting that out onto others. And you're being super critical or highly sensitive around others and their weight. So bringing that back into yourself and asking yourself, when was the first time that I was judged about my weight? And going back and healing that aspect. And oftentimes it could be an inner child wound. It could be something that goes all the way back to your childhood, or it could even go back to your mom, being in your mother's womb. I've talked about that before, where we can pick up those emotions from our mothers and our parents. So diving in a little bit deeper on that and really figuring out, where's my judgment coming from? There's a good book called The Judgment Detox by Gabby Bernstein. I read that several years ago. So if you find that this particular mirror is one that you really struggle with, I would recommend that you check out that book. You might, learn some things from it. She goes through a series of exercises that you can go through to help yourself process your judgment and why you may be projecting that out onto others. And so the last mirror is what I love. And this is he explains a situation where this really pertains to why we are attracted to other people. So, say, for example, you're in a committed relationship. Maybe you've been in a marriage for a long time, or you've been in a relationship for a long time, and you meet someone. You're out at a coffee shop, or there's someone at work, or you meet someone at the grocery store, and you immediately feel a very, very strong attraction and strong connection. And you don't know why. You don't understand, why am I so attracted to this person? This particular mirror asks you to ask yourself, what is it that I sense in this person that I've lost or has been taken away from me? So, say that you're super attracted to this person because they just, have a very strong sense of confidence about them, and they're very comfortable in their skin, and they have this beautiful appeal to them, and you are just, in love with that. You're like, oh my gosh, I just love their confidence, and how they stand up for themselves. So reflecting back to yourself, where have I lost my confidence? Where have I lost my power? Who have I given my power away to? Why is it that I don't feel comfortable in my own skin? And oftentimes, say, for example, you're in a committed relationship and you decide to, go about a relationship with this person because you're so magnetically drawn to them. And then after several months or years, you realize that I'm not really attracted to this person anymore. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that you have healed that aspect within yourself. It's almost like a drought, or you're very super, super thirsty and you're craving water. And the moment you drink the water and that you're quenched, you no longer need that water because you're satisfied and you're fulfilled. So now you're moving on to the next thing. Maybe I need some food, right? So now I'm craving food. So what this particular mirror asks of us is to take a step back and look within ourselves and ask ourselves, what is this person presenting to me that I might need to work on a little bit more in my life. And this this one is a really good example of why we are so strongly attracted to people, and how life is a lesson. It's one huge lesson, and the people that come in and out of our lives bring those lessons to us. And this is how we can get attached in certain relationships. Maybe we've been in a relationship for a really long time and it's not moving forward. There's no commitment, there's no um, growth or no expansion. And really, what's happening in that particular relationship is that there's some sort of a lesson that needs to be learned that we are not learning, or we're taking some time to learn. And it keeps spiraling back to us more and more and more, but we aren't taking the conscious effort to really dive a little bit deeper as to why are we not moving forward? Why are we stagnant? Why are we non-committal? And oftentimes we want to blame the other person. We want to say it's because of you. You're the one who's not wanting to commit. You're the one who's not wanting to, be a part of this relationship, when in actuality, it could be us. On a deeper level, there could be some sort of an inner child wound there, or something within our relationships in the past that has now carried baggage into this particular relationship. So, as we, heal and move through our lives, and we come in contact with other people, experiences, in situations, these mirrors can really be helpful. And it doesn't have to be just one mirror that we experience. We can look at this, multidimensionally, really diving a little bit deeper into, why am I having all of these different problems with this person? It could be someone from your work, it could be your boss, it could be your spouse, it could be a sibling or a parent. Why am I having these problems with this person? And there's a reason why this person is in your life. They are here to teach you something, right? We all signed up for this. We all signed up to have these earthly lessons. And if we aren't learning, then we're kind of stuck. It's like, you're going through your schooling and you're not advancing. You're not learning the math. You're not learning the English, the concepts. So you're being held back. You're being held back to allow yourself some more time to learn a little bit deeper, while your friends and your other students are moving up a level because they're learning the lessons and they're moving through that process a little bit easier. But, it's important to recognize too that we all take different timelines, right? We all have a different timing for when we learn these lessons and how we process them. And sometimes it can be really difficult, because if we aren't tapping in to our heart in having that coherence with our mind, then we can feel very disconnected and very lost. So when we move through this process of these loops, and we recognize that we are stuck in a loop, then it's important to move through that, right? Because our relationships are very important to us. And what Gregg talks about in his book, The Divine Matrix, we are living in a holographic reality. So every choice we make, every move we make is being reflected back to us. So we are causing the results in our life. And our ego wants to say, no, you aren't doing that. That's ridiculous. But our intuition is saying, yes, you are. Every single thing that you're doing in your life is creating something within your reality. So only you can choose the reality that you are creating, and only you can choose the level of consciousness or awareness that you are focusing on. And so, uh, what you are focusing on is meaning that you are giving it that attention, you are giving it that focus, and that in return is creating your reality. So, um, I hope that this information was helpful. And if you want a deeper understanding of these concepts, then I do highly suggest that you check out Gregg Braden's book, The Divine Matrix. He goes into a lot of detail. And if you have the Gaia channel, which is an excellent channel, he also has a show called Missing Links, which provides a lot of this information as well. And it's highly, highly insightful. I know I've used a lot of Gregg's information and applied it to my life over the last 5 years or so. And it has been very transformational for me. So I hope that this was helpful, and I look forward to sharing more insights with you soon.